Hi everybody, Kyle O here. This is a very brief Disney VHS update, including a VHS that I just got, along with two that I never showed before in any update or in any video because I simply forgot. My mind just is all over the place sometimes, and I got these two when I was still in college, and yeah, my brain was of course a mess. I think I missed some of these because at the time I was trying to get that little series going where I would go into certain releases in depth, and I think I was planning on doing something with both of those releases. Like for Ichabod over there, I was going to do like a Halloween episode for that one, similar to the one that I did for not Scary Tales, Halloween Haunts. That really insipid one where I was wearing those plastic claws and I was pretending to be possessed, or I was pretending to be a monster. That was a lot of fun to shoot, though, even though it didn't come out as good as I had wanted it to. And, yeah, I would have probably done a second Halloween episode if I had, the gumption to do it. And I was going to do the Halloween episode with that VHS of Ichabod back in 2016. The Mickey's Christmas Carol one, I was strongly considering a Christmas-themed video corner episode around that, but of course, none of that came to fruition, and a lot of other things didn't come to fruition. If you're wondering if I'll ever revive the Video Corner series, I don't think it's going to happen, but, it's because of where I'm at now in life and all my other commitments. But I wanted to show these three tapes anyways, because I always like to show what I get, and when I add new things to one of my favorite collections, one of my favorite hobbies. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. First up, the 1999 VHS of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. This was the first ever videocassette release of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad as a full-length feature. The individual segments had been released on VHS prior, VHS Beta, what have you, Wind in the Willows, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. After Walt Disney and his crew made the package features, they didn't really theatrically re-release them. The Three Caballeros and Saludos Amigos were exceptions, although when the Three Caballeros was re-released theatrically in 1977, it was in heavily truncated form and ran about 45 minutes and was on a double bill with a longer Disney feature, presumably, I don't know, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo or something, whatever came out in 1977, or whatever was reissued in 1977. Anywho, when it came to home video, Disney usually opted to release the individual segments. They made an exception for Fun and Fancy Free, which I have in my collection. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, strangely, got a Laserdisc release in October of 1992. And the Laserdisc release is interesting because the cover is just the mini classics covers for the individual segments, Wind in the Willows and Legend of Sleepy Hollow, just side by side. And, a rather unceremonious looking typeface for The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad above it. It's like, oh, Ichabod and Mr. Toad on Laserdisc. Anyways, the Masterpiece Collection edition of Ichabod and Mr. Toad was the first ever North American VHS release of the film. And it was also the final title in the Walt Disney Masterpiece Collection, unless you count the 1999 release of Pinocchio as a Masterpiece edition, because early copies of that release open with the Walt Disney Masterpiece Collection logo. So you could consider it part of the line. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't early copies of the 1999 VHS of Great Mouse Detective open that way too? It indicates that those were going to be Masterpiece editions, and then at the very last minute, Disney decided to stop the line before the start of the new century and rebrand, start over. But yeah, that makes The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad the final release in the Walt Disney Masterpiece Collection. Here's a real treat. This is the U.S. Spanish language VHS of 101 Dalmatians. And the interesting thing about this tape is that it's kind of like a weird hybrid of sorts. The cover is the exact same one used for the Classics edition in 1992, when the Classics line was still going in North America. And so is the back cover. The spine, however, has the layout of a Walt Disney Masterpiece Collection edition because this Disney en Espanol release of 101 Dalmatians actually came out in 1996. That was a full 4 years after the original English language VHS came out here in North America, the Classics release. And that I find kind of strange, but for some reason the Espanol ones, the history is a little more murky from my understanding. But yeah, it's kind of weird to see the Classics cover, but with a Masterpiece spine. And for some reason, Rolly is in the profile instead of Luck. And the interesting thing is, with these dubs of Disney animated movies, they actually, because this was still the 1990s, they just sourced film prints instead of taking the print that they used for the, standard English language release and digitally dubbing over it with the other language. So when you watch this, you'll see that they pulled it from a mid-1980s theatrical re-release print of 101 Dalmatians that was in Spanish language, right down to the 1985 Walt Disney Pictures logo at the beginning, and at the end, the metal Buena Vista logo from 1979 makes an appearance. So it's a little bit of a smorgasbord, like it's a Classics cover, a Masterpiece spine, opens with the 85 Walt Disney Pictures logo, but ends with the 1979 Buena Vista. It's like a smorgasbord of different logos and period-centric graphics that Disney were using over the course of 20 to 25 years. And I think that's what makes this release, and also other like Spanish language or French Canadian releases, so interesting. It's like, what particular film prints are they using to make up these, what are they using for these VHSs? And lastly, we have the original VHS release of Mickey's Christmas Carol, which was released in 1984, just a year after the featurette ran before the re-release of The Rescuers in theaters. This was right in time for Disney's Wrapped and Ready to Give promotion of Holiday 1984, which also included Robin Hood, the first ever Classics release, and the Disney DTV volumes. Now the great thing about this edition, not only is the artwork very nice, and it comes in one of those old cases where you can't remove the artwork, it's literally laminated in there, but also it has a behind-the-scenes documentary at the end of the tape. And the behind-the-scenes documentary is kind of a rare glimpse into where Walt Disney Productions was circa 1983. This was around the time The Black Cauldron was gearing up and going into full production, and this was also around the time experiments were being done with computer animation after the release of Tron, notably the Where the Wild Things Are test that Glenn Keane and John Lasseter worked on. Of course, for a better look at that, on the Thief Archives channel, it's broken up into a couple parts, but Backstage at Disney 1983, it's a very comprehensive look at what was going on at Disney at the time, very much a great little document that you won't see on Disney's own behind-the-scenes documentaries that they make today. But yeah, that's why I really like this release of Mickey's Christmas Carol. It's the original, and it's where the artwork is non-removable, and it has that behind-the-scenes look at the end. So yeah, thanks for watching this update. This is Kylo, signing off.